Hello there, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about a very important topic. South African refugees coming to America. As we all know, South Africa is currently facing a severe economic crisis, which has led to a significant increase in the number of refugees seeking asylum in other countries. And while the president is kicking over 20 million illegal immigrants out the country and legal immigrants, the president also has signed an executive order to allow 53 African white South Africans who have land already cause business tonight. You'll hear from other South Africans. They believe that these South Africans have not been honest. We will hear the inside story. This is part one. Many of these refugees are now looking to America as a potential new home. We're proud to be a nation that embraces diversity and inclusivity into our country. Thank you for tuning in, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and comment. What do you think about the situation for more informative and uplifting content?
Moved his family to South Africa after embracing the country's apartheid system.
On Wednesday, Musk's artificial intelligence chatbot, Grok, became a trending topic on X when people tried to use it to answer questions and check facts. And the chatbot added the topic of white genocide in South Africa to its responses, telling users it was, quote, instructed by my creators to accept the genocide, quote, as real and racially motivated, no matter what the question was. For more, we're joined in Cape Town, South Africa by two guests. Herman Wasserman is with us, professor of journalism, director of the Center for Information Integrity in Africa at Stellenbosch University. His new piece for the website Africa is a Country is headlined Trump's Fake Refugees. Wasserman himself is a white South African, an Afrikaner. And Andile Zulu is a political analyst with the Alternative Information and Development Center. His new piece for the website, Africa is a Country, is titled Race, Power, and the Politics of Distraction. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Herman Wasserman, let's begin with you. You are a white South African and you are an Afrikaner. If you can explain, first of all, to the world what exactly that means and what you thought when you heard President Trump charge white genocide in South Africa.
Well, I would say that my first response was one of incredulity, and later met with, with disgust even, and just rejection of this notion of a white genocide or whites being persecuted. And I think that view is shared by many others, white South Africans, and certainly the majority of South Africans in the country.
Well, Andile Zulu, if you could also respond to these claims of a white genocide in South Africa and Trump bringing over these 59 Afrikaners to the U.S., and talk about this in the context of this the new law that replaces the 1975 Expropriation Act in South Africa, and explain why that's been so controversial and what it entails.
Well, this accusation of white genocide emanating from the White House is a conspiracy theory and a myth that has been floating around echo chambers of right-wing populists and white nationalists for many decades now, particularly within the online space. And it essentially holds the accusation that white South Africans, in particular Afrikaans South Africans, are victims of deliberate, direct, state-sanctioned violence. And anyone who lives in this country, who's awake to the reality of this country, the inequality, the poverty, the unemployment that most black South Africans have to endure, and including Indian and colored South Africans as well, knows that it's patently untrue. And the truth, however, is irrelevant to those who are perpetuating this myth. What matters is that it's a means through which you can mobilize anxiety, mobilize fear, and mobilize frustration from a segment, I think a relatively small segment of the population that is dissatisfied with the post-apartheid democracy and the loss of their political elevated status. It's a way in which you can mobilize fears here in South Africa and then appeal to a base within the MAGA movement in the US as well to portray the Donald Trump presidency as essentially being a crusader to defend white civilization both in the USA and here. And this all began initially with the signing by the President Ramaphosa of the Expropriation Act, which in itself is not that much of a radical or progressive policy. It's a very procedural piece of legislation which essentially changes the criteria through which government can expropriate private property for the public good and for the public use on the basis of finding just and equitable compensation. And in fact, most legal experts have said that the instances in which you will arrive at nil compensation, at no compensation, would be quite rare, actually. So this legislation isn't an assault on white livelihoods. It isn't even an attack on the dominance of private property relations in post-apartheid. But for Elon Musk and for Donald Trump, it's doing what right-wing populism, what racial ideologies always function to do, which is to stoke fear, conflict, and division in order to be able to protect the exploitative and unequal relations under South Africa's neoliberal capitalism, and I think under the neoliberal order that we have more broadly.
And Andile, I just want to add a couple of things that I wanted to say earlier, which is to clarify for audiences who aren't as aware of South Africa's history. It was a 1913 law that gave over 90% of South Africa's land to whites. Today, they are some 7% of the population of white South Africans, but they still own about half, 50% of the country's land. Afrikaners, who constitute the majority of the white population, are among, of course,